Hello everyone, I am Steve Shu from the Shu's Pottery, and I am honored to be here today to share with you the course of ceramic handicraft design and artistic technique. First, we will introduce the relationship between the Shu's pottery and Yingke ceramics. The second part will focus on the analysis of the current situation of Yingke ceramics and the development of local revitalization in Yingke. The third part is the production and design process of Yingke ceramics. In these three parts, we will combine the cultural aspect and then the current industrial aspect, so that you can be familiar with the method and design process of Yingke ceramics in Taiwan, as well as the production process. The first part is about the development and history of the Shu's pottery and Yingke ceramics. We would like to introduce the Shu's pottery, which was established in 1926 in Yingke, Taiwan. From the first generation, coal was used to make roof tiles, as you can see from the photo on the presentation. This ancient form of kiln, we call it stuffed bun kiln in Taiwan, because it looks like the steamed stuffed buns we often eat, and its crown is round, so we call it the stuffed bun kiln, dome kiln, in general. There were other types of kiln in Yingke from the early 1926 to 1940s, such as the quadrangular kiln, which we called square kiln, when we used coal as fuel, and coal was easy to get in the area because both Yingke and Sanxia were rich in coal. Eventually, Yingke produced ceramics because of the two types of clay that are abundant in Yingke. The first is terra rossa, which contains a lot of ferrous oxide and has a reddish color. The other is terra nera, which is very suitable for baking pots and pans, such as buck pot and casserole. Our first-generation founder, Mr. Shu Yingshi, was mainly engaged in making tile. Until the second generation, Mr. Shu Xin Wang, we changed our focus to the production of dishes. When we changed from tiles to dishes, we used the paddy field soil in Yingke and Taoyuan-Tianbian to produce dishes for daily use, and that became our main production. The main reason for this was that during the restoration period in Taiwan, there were political problems that prevented the import and export of ceramic products between Taiwan and China, which indirectly led to the development of Yingke dishes and household ceramics. The first one is called dancing bowl. You can see from the photo that it is a green bowl tied up with twine, and the second one is a bowl with two colors. We call it yin and yang bowl in Taiwan. The concept of yin and yang bowl comes from one yin versus one yang. Yin represents the dark color, while yang represents the light color. We also have the Danqing yin-yang bowl. The color is green with brown, and the blue with brown yin-yang bowl is the Shuiqing yin-yang bowl. When the second generation of Mr. Shu Xinwang produced the bowls, our products were full of special features, such as the fan pattern that can be seen in the photo, and the fan symbolizes the wish for our family business to blossom and be prosperous. Another special design is the lychee, which is one of the most abundant fruits in Taiwan and has the symbolic meaning of having a baby early in Taiwan. Later on, in response to the major important development and production Taiwan after the 1965s, the government invested in a large number of major construction projects, and many houses had to be renovated and rebuilt during this period. So the second-generation owner Mr. Xin Wangshu gradually shifted the focus of the production of dishes to the production of tiles. The first was a white glazed tile, which was usually laid on the wall, or on the side of the stove in the old Taiwanese kitchens, or on the wall of the bathroom. The second product is made of local red clay, called red steel tile. Although these two types of tiles are now in decline in Taiwan, they were the beginning of the tile industry in the 1965s and 70s, as you can see from the photo in the presentation, which shows the old factory of Shu's Pottery, called Shei Shine Kiln Factory. We also used coal for firing in our kiln, as mentioned above, because the development of tiles was actually very fast. Aside from the coal kiln, we gradually started to change. At that time, Japan or European countries, such as Germany and Italy, these three countries have developed more advanced kiln equipment. To the third generation of the Shu's pottery, Mr. Shu Xianjia began to invest in the introduction of Italian and German fast tile computerized roller kiln. Why is it called computerized roller kiln? As you can see in the photo, our kiln wheel is very long, and this is only part of it. Its total length is up to 100 meters. With computerized roller kiln, all are automated. Everything is automated from putting in our materials, grinding them, making them into dry powder for die casting, and then feeding them into this fast computerized roller kiln. The firing process takes about 40 to 50 minutes, then a tile is ready. You can see from the photo that there is a circle of parts under the machine. They are one by one and together. That is the roller of the machine. The speed is very fast and we can produce about 40,000 to 50,000 tiles in a day. When we started the automatic production in 1980s, it was also in response to the demand of Taiwan's economic development. The demand for housing was very high and the tile industry was booming. Therefore, we reorganized our tile brand and called it King Kong Tile. King Kong Tile was the best in terms of product quality and production technology at that time, and we produced fully porcelain tiles and the so-called wet glazed quartz tiles with water absorption rate close to 0.5% or even lower. The firing process, in terms of speed, temperature and glaze formulation, was mostly retransferred from German or Italian technology, and so far the tile industry has been a great period for us in Yingke from the 1980s to 1990. Until now in 2021, the tile industry in Yingke is gradually declining due to the shrinking market. The Shu's pottery has developed to the late stage, which is about these 20 years. I am the fourth generation to take over the business. After 2004, I started to transform to the cultural and creative industry to make the products more creative and culturally distinctive, and to emphasize the design and production of yingke. The reason is because our third-generation owner had invested in other parts of the world, including China and the Philippines, during the third generation of our business, and we have observed that the environment outside is very competitive for us, and it is not easy to survive. So we decided to return to our hometown to invest in the local ceramic industry and make it better. We younger generation started making mugs and selling our products through online marketing. We received many orders and gradually developed and created a market for creative gifts, not only taking orders ourselves, but also selling in various channels in Taiwan. About 10 years ago, we also went overseas to participate in some design exhibitions, competitions, etc., and got a lot of good results. Therefore, we slowly opened up the overseas market, and now we have presence in Japan, Singapore, Australia, etc. We have received orders from these countries for design commissions and invitations, and these are our development in recent years. Around 2010, as yingke started to transform from 1995's to become a tourist attraction, we rebuilt the century-old kiln into a tourist factory. We named it the Shoes Pottery, after the second-generation owner Mr. Xu Xinwang, as this was the location of his early factory. The Shoes Pottery was also the first tourist factory in yingke, which was selected by the new Taipei city government and evaluated by the Industrial Development Bureau of the Ministry of Economic Affairs. We are currently engaged in the production and design of the industry, as well as the Shoes Pottery, which focuses on pottery and local culture education. The Shoes Pottery provides a complex service with light food, coffee and life aesthetics products. In addition to the many different ceramics products, you can also enjoy our coffee with all our own designed tableware and coffee sets. Lastly, we would like to introduce a special area, the Xu Xin Memorial Ceramics Museum. In the museum, we have a collection of products, artifacts, and old machinery from the 90 years and nearly 100 years of pottery making at the Shoes Pottery. Through guided tours, you can learn about all the cultural evolution of the Shoes Pottery, as well as participate in many pottery activities in the pottery classroom on the first floor. For example, the most traditional way of making pottery is by hand shaping, and we offer classes on hand shaping, and we also offer classes on painting ceramics, both overglazed color figure and underglazed color figure. Recently we also developed a new course to let people know how the pattern of the fired ceramics is fired up, so we opened a ceramic decal course. We have designed a variety of different forms and styles of paper patterns in various colors, and you can try to paste the printed parts on the ceramics by hand. We will help students to learn the pottery at our site and send the finished product back to them after a period of time. The current activities and courses at the museum are mostly like these. At the same time, we have also invested in many community-related operations, including local school culture education and guided tours, so the Shoes Pottery not only provide pottery activities in the museum, sell merchandise, but also provide guided tours throughout the streets of Yingke. Before last year's epidemic, the entire Yingke shopping district and our tourist factory had 20% foreign customers who were very interested in our local culture and products, including products designed in Taiwan and our own branded products. They love the guided tour very much, through the tour and professional tour guides, no matter what in what language. The culture of Yingke is introduced to them. Spreading out Yingke's culture is also one of our biggest missions in establishing the Shoes Pottery. In 2020, we have especially joined in the T22 project of Taiwan Design Research Institute's Taiwan production. They started to consult various production sites in the previous year 2019. The Shoes Pottery was very active in seeking for the project on behalf of Yingyi, and we are honored to be selected. The most important thing is that Taiwan Design Research Institute has asked Japanese experts in handcraft and local revitalization to help us. We had their support and consultation the whole process of local revitalization and brand establishment. We truly learned a lot. As a result of our one-star project, we have established a new brand called Koga Tableware. Our brand name comes from our family's culture and history of making pottery from the 1920s to the present, so we use the Shoe family as a brand name, and our products are also focused in tableware. Our tableware design is just like our second-generation Mr. Xin Wang Shoes transformation. We repositioned the tableware for new generation of Taiwanese people. So this time we designed a tableware brand specially for Taiwanese people. For example, Taiwan's daily food like stir-fry dishes and steamed fish are dishes that come with grease, so you can see from the photos that our tableware design is deeper. Also, Taiwanese love to eat rice and noodles. For noodles you need a bigger bowl, especially the famous beef noodles. Our big bowl can perfectly fit good beef noodles. The bottom of all the bowls are high enough and deep enough because Taiwanese people prefer hot food and hot soup, so bowls without legs are difficult to use. Therefore, our design is actually a tableware brand specifically for Taiwanese cuisine, and the brand's English name Koga also comes from the Shoe family's pronunciation in Taiwanese. The entire brand is built focusing tableware, and 4 colors are developed. You can only see one red color from the presentation. This red color represents the first and second generation of our products, red roof tiles and red steel bricks, which are representative of the red color of Taiwanese ceramics, and we call it Shay Xing Red. The meaning of Shay Xing Red comes from factory of our second generation owner. We also developed 3 other colors in this set: green, white and yellow. Green is just introduced to you Danqing green. White we call it Yingke white, from the coal kiln we used in first generation. In the past, when burning coal, it produced black smoke in the sky of Yingke. So the sky of Yingke is always dark and gloomy gray, so we call that white as Yingke white. And finally is the kiln yellow. Kiln yellow mainly comes from the yellow color of the flame in our kiln firing process. The entire design of color system and the use of tableware are based in the cultural background of Taiwan. We will introduce the development and transformation of the shoes pottery from 1962 to the present, and let you get to know the shoes pottery, which represents the epitome of the entire Yingke pottery industry development. After learning about the development of the shoes pottery, we would like to introduce the current situation of ceramic production in Yingke and the development of local creativity. Later, during the Japanese rule, as the Japanese arrived and brought in more pottery-related technology and capital, they began to produce a wider variety of pottery, not only for domestic use but also for military use. After the restoration of Taiwan, because of the Civil War, we started to produce a large number of ceramics for daily use, which brings us back to the Danqing bowl produced by Mr. Xu Xin Wang, the second-generation owner, as we mentioned above. In this period, we can find that our Taiwanese dishware thrived for about 20 years, and they are probably decorated with floral patterns, and some special ones such as fish, shrimps, animals, etc., which were commonly used in the design of bowl at that time. There are also 2 colors, for example, we have the production of yin-yang bowls. You can see in the photo there are yin-yang plates, or the design concept influenced by Japanese style. Rim decoration were added on the bowl. There are a variety of different colors such as red, green. More sophisticated ones may go with gold. These are the characteristics and design of Taiwan's dishware in early 1950s to 1970. In fact, Yingke started to gather kiln industry in Beitou, Taipei, where ceramics flourished in the early days, and the successful development of Yingke was also related to Beitou. Because it is located in Taipei City, we can see from the photos that the black smoke produced by burning coal is very large. As the development of Taipei City, you cannot continue to burn coal. The second reason is that a very important fuel in Taiwan started to develop, which is our natural gas. At that time, when natural gas was extracted from Miaoli in Taiwan, the local representatives in Yingke went to the government to fight for the cleaner and less polluting fuel like natural gas to be piped directly to Yingyi. Since then, there is no need to use coal when firing. With natural gas, the firing efficiency is faster, and the quality of the products is also greatly improved. As the kiln industry in Beitou was slowly banned, the pottery makers and painters who were working in Beitou moved south, and the nearest place was Yingke, which is the reason why Yingke officially became the most important ceramics producer in Taiwan after the 1970s. In fact, in the 1980s, in addition to the flourishing of tile factories and tile manufacturing, we also exported to advanced countries, such as Europe and the United States. The daily ceramics products they needed were mainly produced here. These daily use ceramics products were in large quantities, including mugs, toiletries, etc., all of which are exported from Yingke. At that time, there were dozens of containers being shipped out almost every day. To enable our ceramics products be mass-produced and popularized, the most important thing is that we no longer use hand-painted ceramic patterns. Ceramic stained paper is like the printing method, which can print the ceramic color onto the paper and then decal by hand. This method greatly saves the time and cost, and it can be applied to the production of ceramics. It became more and more popular and faster and with high consistency. This is why from the 80s to the present, ceramic stained paper is the main method of transferring patterns. By the 1990s, you can see a wide variety of pottery in Yingke. This is also in response to the economic development of Taiwan to a certain extent. People began to pursue newer and more advanced porcelain arts, and then ceramic products became more than just household items. You can see from the photo, there are artworks made by Pars gilt painting. In addition to the body of the porcelain being molded, the gold and red patterns on the top are hand-painted by the painter, and it takes quite a few steps to complete the process. In the picture on the bottom right of the presentation, the red and blue flowers are the carmine colors were hand-painted, sintered at 1300 degrees, and then painted in gold. For the gold part, we are currently using gold with 12% karat gold, which is very high in value and costly. About 100 grams costs 28,000 NTD. The gold pigment is also hand-painted on the tea set, and then sintering at about 700 degrees to complete. It is an elaborate work of art, and although it is also functional, sophisticated crafts such as this have gradually become collections of art. Some tea sets have blue and white porcelain as decoration. Blue glaze of the traditional blue and white porcelain in the Ming and Qing dynasties was painted by hand. At that time in the 1990s, because people liked this relatively high-end, high-quality handcraft, so then a variety of creative pottery works have thrived. In 2000 entered a different stage. In 2000, with the introduction of design and cultural creativity concept, the traditional handmade, splendid pottery items were less favored by the younger generation, but began to move towards a creative, interesting pottery. For example, in the presentation, we can see that on the left side, there is a cup with the character Shi, which is designed and developed by a famous design company in Taiwan, and it is still very popular in the market. This cup is just a simple mug, but it uses the Chinese character Shi, which requires a pair of two cups to become a double happiness. The concept of double happiness represents marriage, celebration, and the union of two people in Chinese culture, and this product is given an auspicious meaning, and the design also represents the concept of culture and creative design in Taiwan at that time. The second is the rise of many miniature personal pottery studios. The main reason for this is that the technique of pottery is gradually becoming more popular, and many Taiwanese universities and schools are starting to set up pottery art and craft design departments to help promote and pass on the skills, so that students can learn the basic knowledge of pottery and the techniques of making pottery, and then they start to create their own personal pottery art. The first is tea sets. The second is pottery products for daily use. These are relatively easy to enter the threshold. And then the third is the cultural and creative design. From 2000 to 2010, the ceramic tea set produced in Taiwan was well received in the Chinese market. Especially the combination of creative design GAN tea sets is very popular. 10 years ago, the rise of cultural tourism in Taiwan led to the transformation of the ceramic industry in Yingyi, which focused on cultural and knowledge-based tourism planning, as well as a handcrafted pottery experience. This is the main reason why the shoes pottery was transformed in 2011. In the past decade or so, Taiwan has been developing parent-child tours, as well as school tours and off-campus teaching, and the creation of cultural, historical, and spatial atmospheres that are very attractive to Taiwanese and even foreigners. The most important advantage of Yingke ceramics is that it has the most complete production and supply chain in Taiwan. Secondly, since the supply chain is complete, the ability of mass-produce products is very high, as long as you have an idea for a serum. The third point is the high clustering. You can find upstream, midstream, downstream factories and even market customers in Yingke, and we even have the Yingke Ceramics Museum, so all gathered here, whether it is a more avant-garde art creation concept or exhibition, or even the sale of goods such as Yingke Ceramics Old Street shopping area. These are very big advantages for Yingke. The fourth reason is that the sophistication of the products produced by Yingke is higher compared to other ceramics production areas. Finally, our industrial resources are relatively rich compared to other ceramic production areas in Taiwan. Currently, there are about 3 ceramic production areas in Taiwan, namely Yingke, Miaoli and Nantou, but the ceramic industry in Miaoli and Nantou is in the form of a single point, while Yingke is the only place with a high concentration of ceramic industry. Yingyi has one more special feature. It is one of the few places in the world where has the 5 major categories of ceramics converge, including art ceramics, household ceramics, bathroom ceramics, building ceramics, and last but not least, high-tech precision ceramics. However, Yingyi also has its own problems to face, and our industrial chain is gradually disappearing. The first point is that the number of ceramic factories with more than 20 employees in the Yingyi area is decreasing year by year. While the ceramic factories are gradually decreasing, there are more and more individual workshops and fewer factories, so there are fewer and fewer suppliers of raw materials. These are our major problems, and we would like to introduce this part first. Next, we will introduce the ceramic production method in Yingyi, and this part will focus on the process and method of local ceramic production in Yingyi. First of all, we will introduce you the material of ceramics. At present, we mainly divide into 4 categories of ceramics for Taiwan. The first one is pottery. The raw material of pottery is yellowish. The impurities contained like silt content, iron content will be higher. The required firing temperature is less than 1000 degrees. The water absorption of the body is about 10% or more. The second is called stoneware, also known as semi-porcelain or semi-pottery. The clay is basically yellowish-white. Firing temperature can be between 1100 degrees to 1200 degrees. Water absorption is about 6%. The third is porcelain, because porcelain belongs to the higher specifications of porcelain clay. The clay is close to white. Its required firing temperature is around 1200 to 1300 degrees. Water absorption is around 0.5%. The fourth refractory porcelain is more special. The temperature can reach 1300 degrees to 1400 degrees. Water absorption is almost close to 0%. Ceramic vessels are roughly divided into these 4 parts. In simple terms, it is divided into pottery and porcelain, and strictly speaking, it is divided into these 4 types of pottery, stoneware, porcelain, and refractory porcelain, and at present, Yingke mainly uses pottery and porcelain. Refractory porcelain is mainly used in European factories, and we also use stoneware. Next, we would like to introduce our ceramic production process. Basically, ceramic production is divided into several steps. The first one is the clay training. The second one is the step of entering into the molding. Slip lasting is one of the molding method we used. As you see from the photo, we will mix the clay with a certain proportion of water and other ingredients, and then the masters will pour it into the plaster mold. This slip-lasting method is suitable for special shaped products, such as dolls or objects with images, or products that need to make some accessories, such as handles or ears of doll. These are all very suitable for the use of the slip-lasting method. At present, the introduction of all belong to the mass production method. The hand-shaping method we have just mentioned will not be discussed here. The second method, which we call stamping, or we call jigger. The plaster mold is put into the machine, and there is a green machine with a round iron head above it. Once the clay is put inside the plaster mold, the round side of the machine will set in the clay and gradually press it into the shape. through the shape of the plaster mold, and the space between the machine can gradually form the shape of the ceramic. This molding method can ensure large production quantity, ideally for products such as mugs. As long as they are made in a round shape, you can use stamping shaping method. Most of our own factories use semi-automatic jigger molding machines. The machine you see in the photo is fully automatic and can put in nearly 100 molds. The so-called semi-automatic jigger molding machine means we have to manually put the clay pieces into the white plaster mold below, press the jigger and then dry it. This can be very quantitative. Automatic jigger machine can produce about 7,000 to 8,000 mugs a day. If it is semi-automatic, we can produce at least 1,200 to 2,000 mugs a day. After the molding is done, and after a certain period of time, after the drying is completed, we are ready for mold releasing. In this photo, usually the molds are divided. Like for this cup, it is divided into 4 pieces. We can see that the upper part of the mouth is still rough, so we can't take it to firing yet. This photo is also mold releasing. A big plate like this requires extra cautious when releasing the mold. Because this is the first mold, we still have to finish it by hand, using special brush or sponge to brush it to get rid of the rough or residual mold lines. We call it trimming. When the surface of the mold is completely smooth, then we can go to the next section. So the trimming is very important. Then comes the washing process. We pour a bucket of water to wash off all the bad rough surfaces, mold lines and protrusions. This is the washing process. Then we may need to do shaping. If your product has accessories, for example, the handle of the cup is one of the accessories, then we have to take 2 steps. One is the body of the cup, and the other is the handle to be infused after molding, and after a certain drying time, the 2 components must be combined. You would need some material to combine the 2 parts. The first one is the slurry. You have to prepare a bucket of slurry as the glue. You use slurry to combine the molds. Aside from handles, if you are making something with more shapes, each part may need to be shaped separately. You can also use the method of shaping to make all of them together. After shaping, washing, we are ready for the first firing. Firing requires no glazing. Simply send it into the kiln. We use 800 degrees to 950 degrees to do firing. Basically, we recommend firing to 950 degrees, because 950 degrees of firing temperature is more efficient. You can burn of organic substances in the clay, achieve better quality. There will not be a lot of black spots or impurities left inside. Of course, 800 degrees to 900 degrees of temperature is also fine. The most important purpose of the firing action is that, first, allows the mold to harden slightly, and the brittleness is about the same as that of a baked biscuit. The second purpose is that it is better to pick up after hardening, and the most important reason is that after firing, the mold will have a large hygroscopicity, and this hygroscopicity makes it easy for the glazing. It will absorb the water from the glaze, and the glaze will be naturally adsorbed on it. In the glazing process, the surface is smoother and more even, so firing is a very important process. After firing, we have been working on the research and development of colorants for a long time, and in these 20 years our ceramic raw materials and technology have been very mature. The raw material manufacturers are also more and more specialized. They have a variety of glaze formulas. Glaze is divided into two kinds. One is transparent glaze. Another is opaque glaze. Transparent glaze is brighter after firing. Opaque glaze is opaque, close to the matte or no light paint. Although the color of ceramic cannot be as accurate as printing with 4-color overprint, but through continuous testing and mixing ratios and formulas, we can have different shades of color. This photo shows the colors we mix in our factory. For example, the yellow color will be different ratios. Using different dipping methods will produce different colors. Like green, it varies from light to deep green. For brown color, there are many different kinds. You can make your color sample through the process of testing, of course. Glaze color will differ subject to your conditions. The first is the material you use, whether it is clay, semi-porcelain clay or porcelain, and then the second will be related to your firing temperature. Firing temperature will affect the result. Then, the sintering atmosphere. If you use gas for kiln firing, you can make more reductive effect. The so-called reductive effect is to extract air out of kiln air and cause the formation of oxygen-free state, so that the glaze will have other changes, such as the most commonly used celadon in Taiwan, is to mix iron oxide in the glaze. Simple firing will not cause the green effect. The green color will only appear after the reductive effect. So the concept of glaze depends on, first, the basic formula of glaze, whether it is transparent or milky, and second, the material, whether it is clay or semi-porcelain clay. This will have a relationship with the emission of glaze. Third, the firing environment, whether it is oxidation or reduction. If it is electric kiln, then it is the oxidation firing mainly. Oxidation firing is you don't extract air out of kiln. The kiln is still filled with oxygen. The firing effect will be more consistent. There will be no reduction or kiln effect, relatively stable. For product with more colors, such as this colored glaze, oxidation firing will enhance yield rate. This is glazing. There are many ways of glazing. From the picture it shows dip glazing. Prepare a large bucket of glaze and soak the items in it for about 1 second to 3 seconds, then take it out quickly. Then dip glazing is completed. Or you could try spray glaze. Actually, not necessarily dip glazing or spray glaze. It depends on the type of your glaze, of course. In terms of mass production, dip glazing way is the most efficient way. For special glaze, spray glaze is recommended. There are now more special methods, such as automatic glazing or automatic spray glaze machine. These are only recommended when the production quantity is very large, and we may have other steps before the glazing process, such as underglazed color figure. You put on the paint before glazing. The above is the introduction of glazing. The next step is to glaze firing. We just mentioned the glaze firing temperature. Different materials will require different firing temperature. First of all, for example, the most commonly used firing temperature here, general porcelain, we most commonly use about 1250 degrees to 1300 degrees as firing temperature. If it is semi-porcelain, firing temperature is a bit lower, about 1200 degrees to 1230 degrees. In Taiwan, the heating time for process of glaze firing, from the general room temperature to the required firing temperature, we usually set individual firing curve according to different products. We will need to keep constant temperature 200 or 800 degrees for a few hours. These must depend on the glaze material and the glaze type you want to achieve, and your kiln characteristics will affect too. How to set your firing curve is dependent on experience. I cannot tell you the correct answer. The most important is the glaze firing process on average will probably last for 13 to 15 days. The slower the firing, your product yield rate and kiln temperature will be uniform. But the longer the firing takes, the higher fuel costs will relatively increase, so we will control the firing process in a certain firing curve, to find the best balance between the glaze and the kiln temperature. After the kiln firing process is completed, we will do quality inspection. Inspection standards will be divided into several points. The most important inspection method in Taiwan is to put it away in about 50 centimeters distance, to see with naked eye. If there are no more than 3 tiny black spots, pinholes within one, this is our standard evaluation method. Of course, we still need to focus on the different consumer trends in different places, and in Taiwan, the quality inspection standard is more strict. No black spot and pinhole is allowed. Next is the overglazed part. We mentioned before there is a technique called decal. Currently we have very mature stained paper technology in Taiwan. There are 2 types, variable and non-variable colors. You usually need to soak. After soaking into water, as our photos show, he will form a film, so that the pattern and mold backing paper will separate. After the separation, we decal the pattern manually onto the cup, then use some tools to dry between the paper and the ceramic blank, and then put it into the kiln after drying. This is the basic method of decal, and finally it is finished and needs to be packaged after finishing. Back to the part of the ceramic plaster mold. There are several points to note in the manufacturing process. Before the ceramic plaster mold is made, all the forms will be designed and made into a round model. Since the ceramic is the finished product from the blank firing, so the process will definitely shrink. Shrinkage rate depends on the material. ranging from 18% to 15%, are all reasonable, so the plaster round mold necessary to enlarge. After the completion of the second round mold, we have to start doing the slice. The professional mold master will go to judge how to release the mold for proper production. So in the design of the ceramic, you must not use chamfering, otherwise you can never demold. After the slice, mold is tested without problem. We have to turn the test mold into a master mold. The purpose of the master mold is to be used for the subsequent reproduction of more molds. Usually we produce a product will require at least 100 molds. Each mold can last for around 50 turns. Of course, depending on your quality requirements, you can make 100, 230, 330 turns without any problem. But the more times you turn the blank, the larger the mold line will be, so it is not recommended. With our quality requirements, we always recommend to keep within 50 turns. Another special thing is that if you use a stamping jigger, you will use a metal mold or a lower mold. In terms of making round shapes, there are manual ways, such as the shape of the adobe in the photo on the left, which is made by hand. Then this is the process of making the master mold. In addition, there is also a relatively special grouting mold as high-pressure grouting into the mold. It is divided into the upper and lower mold. There is also jigger production mold. Next is the about color of stained paper for screen printing. Usually the screen version will be divided into several parts: single color, gradient color and full color. Single color can be seen on the left. If it is a black, belongs to the single color version. If the pattern has a gradient effect, you have to use two different gradient plates, and you need two colors to stack for the gradient effect. Then comes the full color version. Your color picture require lots of colors, maybe a painting or a photo. We must rely on the master to split the image and see what colors there are before opening the screen. Finally, there will be a film plate, we call it focus film, and it is yellow. The reason to make it in yellow is to benefit the following process. The decal master can be more efficient in aligning the colors, as the yellow color will usually disappear when temperature goes up to 200 degrees, so do not worry about color residue. Like this is an example. We design the pattern and then distinguish the color blocks. Like this pattern has several colors, a total of 9 colors to stack out. We will draw a black line frames, is the so-called focus film position. It helps to effectively position the patterns in process of decal. These are the tools we will use to decal. In addition to ceramic products, there will be water basin, sponge, finger cover, rags, small tweezers, and most importantly, small rubber scrapers. This is a simple simulation of decal, like this one, which is a special stained paper that can change color. The one on the right is before the color change. We usually use dark color to cover light color, because it will change color after hot water is poured in, so the left side after the color change. This is the illustration and the product's actual photo. The production will look like this. Before the final product is sold, we will go through several tests. The first and most important is the lead and cadmium dissolution test. We produce dishware like mugs, tableware and other products that are used to contain food. In Taiwan, our law requires dissolution test of lead and cadmium from a qualified agency. For example, if your product is a pot for stewing, we will do the thermal cycling testing, from room temperature to 150 degrees to see if it will break, and there are other tests such as microwave ovens, dishwashers, dish dryers, etc. These are all common tests. These test results will help to improve the trust of our products in the future market. The above is the content of the course I shared this time. Thank you.